What's up, guys? Spin Firearms here, and everybody in the world knows stock Glocks have terrible triggers. But before we get started, hit the like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe. All these firearms are cleared and safety checked. And we're going to be talking about triggers today, right? So a lot of my everyday carry options, actually I should say mainly all of them, have stock triggers. There's a couple where I change out a trigger shoe or something like that, but I rarely ever like to mess with the internals as far as the trigger bar and stuff like that. If you've ever built a firearm or put one together, you realize real quick that an out-of-spec trigger bar is one of the most disastrous problems you could have. Anyways, Glock 26, this is one of my favorite carry options right here. I haven't been carrying it since I put this optic on it though. This is more just a range toy for now. I've been carrying my other Glock 26. And yes, these are also all Glock 26s, different variations and stuff like that. What's interesting is they all have one thing in common. They've all been 100% reliable. They all have, or a couple of them have optics. You know, some have aftermarket slides, aftermarket triggers, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of aftermarket stuff going on. Base plates, not a single issue with any of them. If you buy quality stuff and bet your products, you're not going to have issues. It just is what it is. And every firearm has has no issues until it has an issue. That's the thing. When you get up in high round counts, you know, when do you start swapping out parts? That's the question we all need to ask ourselves, and that's why I keep 10, 15, OEM parts kits sitting in my toolbox, ready to go at all times, because I have had part breakages on Glocks. I had a slide stop get too gunked up and broke the spring at about 12,000 rounds without cleaning it for 2,000 rounds. So stuff does happen even with Glocks when you use them a lot, right? Now, this right here is a stock Glock trigger. This is what it looks like, right? And I was kidding about Glock trigger sucking, right? They're just regular defensive triggers. Law enforcement, military, people for self-defense have used these for years. And honestly, I don't know if you guys watch a lot of self-defense encounters or videos or, justified stuff, but there's been a lot with the Glock 26 in it. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to that, but as of recent, there's been a lot with the Glock 26. And I'm not just, saying it's a great thing. Nobody wants to be in a self-defense encounter. I'm just saying that a lot of people trust their 26s with their lives, and it's came through for them. It's just an observation. It's just a fact at this point. So I don't mind stock Glock triggers at all. So like I said, this is one of my most carried, and my other carry Glock 26 does have a stock trigger in it, right? But this is what a stock trigger looks like, right? You have like a little bit of sponge, a lot of mush, and then a brakes, right? Reset's not bad on any Glock. It's, short, springs back, a little heavy, whatever. I don't mind it. For a defensive trigger, when you're under adrenaline, stress, chaos, people yelling, people screaming, just stuff everywhere going on, I want a little bit heavier of a trigger. I don't want a 1911 trigger. I don't want a sweet, light trigger. I want something that, if things are crazy, that's not going to go off on accident, whether it's me or someone else. Because sometimes with adrenaline going through you, not everything is, clear. Not all your training is just kicking in. But I don't mind this trigger at all. Next, we're going to go to another Glock trigger. At the end, I'm going to show you my favorite aftermarket trigger. So this is not an aftermarket trigger. People keep thinking it is when I talk about the OEM performance trigger. This is a Glock trigger, made by Glock, sold by Glock only, right? It's not like this trigger. It's not like that trigger. This is just like this trigger. They're both made by Glock. Now, this doesn't come stock in any Glocks yet, but for the Gen 5s, you can buy it aftermarket, and it's still considered an OEM trigger, and it'll still run flawlessly in your Glock. This is one of my favorite OEM triggers by Glock. I like it much better than the original, right? So crisp and clean, and it's just the overall feel. The rotation of the trigger with the shaping of it is just perfect. You saw that reset. You guys saw that reset. Absolutely beautiful, right? It's just a great overall awesome trigger, right? Zero issues with that. Now, one of my other favorite, or I should say my first favorite aftermarket trigger right here is an Apex trigger, right? Crisp, clean wall, really shortens up that trigger, but there is a little bit of over travel, not much. The Apex trigger is just flawless. Now, I really want to get one for my Shield. Everyone says it makes a real big difference for the 2.0s and the 1.0s. So I would like to get that on my 2.0 because my 1.0 is a performance center, so it already has a great trigger in it. But the Apex trigger, I absolutely love. And this handgun right here has a new slide, but this is the one that I was just telling you about with a part breakage. This is a new slide stop. It happened last summer, so about a year and a half ago. This broke completely. I was testing this Glock 2,000 rounds without cleaning it. Ran flawlessly, even with all this aftermarket stuff. That was the only part breakage, and that was at about 12,000 rounds to this handgun. Since then, I got a new slide for it, you know, stuff like that. But overall, love the Apex trigger. It is what it is. But probably my favorite carry trigger is going to be this right here. And one of the biggest things I like about it is look at how tiny that thing is. Look at where it sits, how far back. Right now, obviously, it's not ready to go, but look at that. You have plenty of room for a gloved finger. Look at my finger in there, which is huge in a state where it gets cold. With something like the performance trigger, a lot of your space is being eaten up by that trigger. The Apex, same thing. A lot of that space is now being eaten up by that trigger. The Wheaton arms trigger is just so, it's like perfect. The shape of it is perfect. How far back it sits is perfect. How it feels is perfect. I honestly love the thing. Now, let's take a look at it real quick. Actually, we'll take a look at the actual shape, stuff like that. There's the dingus. Now let's actually check out this trigger. There's just something about the way it sits in your finger. I mean, you can't, you know, sometimes with certain triggers, you know, if you're a little high, a little low, whatever the case may be, it throws it off a little bit. There is no way you can sit your finger wrong on this trigger. There's just no way. It's pretty light, it's clean, it's crisp, but the reason why I like it is, like, for instance, look at the Glock trigger, how you have all these lines and ridges as the trigger sticks out more. It feels fine, it just feels like a normal trigger. This right here, though, feels like it was designed for my finger. It literally feels like it was designed for my finger. It's crisp, it's clean, but here's the thing I like about it. It's not as light as that performance trigger. It's not as heavy as the Apex trigger. It's pretty similar to a Glock trigger. It's just smoothed out, cleaned up, and shorter in every single way. It's just an overall better defensive trigger while still having weight on it. That wall is lighter and just so much more clean and crisp. It's honestly an awesome trigger. Now, I bought this with my own money. This is not an advertisement or anything like that. This trigger right here is honestly my favorite. Now, when you go to get one, if you want to get one, they have so many different spring kits and options and stuff like that. I just stick with the everyday carry-oriented factory springs or factory weight, right? I prefer this trigger simply because of the trigger shoe. That is my main reason behind it. I absolutely love this trigger shoe. I love the dingus, and I just think it makes the Glock trigger a perfect defensive trigger, and it's a really nice shooter. And that's why I went with it on this build, because this build right here was meant for everyday carry. I actually put a little bit of money into this build. As you can see, awesome 3-dot Trijicon night sights. Awesome Grey Ghost precision barrel. I really went all out with this little Glock 26 build. That's why I went with the Wheaton arms trigger. Now, I didn't always like the Wheaton arms trigger the best, but over time, its reliability has impressed me. Its shootability has impressed me, and a big thing I notice is when I go to the range or someone else shoots my firearms, they always mention this Glock 26 versus my stock Glock 26. They always just say it just shoots so much differently simply because of that trigger. But as far as aftermarket, that is going to be the best. But if you want to keep it stock, keep it OEM, keep it Glock friendly, that performance trigger for Gen 5s is just unbelievable. But sorry, they don't make it for the Gen 3, and I don't recommend modding it simply to throw it in a Gen 3 when there's stuff like this Wheaton arms trigger out here. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.